There we go.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, hey everybody, I'm Bill.
And I'm Elizabeth, and Leo live simple.
Live free. You know, recently I've had quite a few people ask if I have gotten a deer since I did that video about the crossbow. And in fact, yes, I did get a deer, and I actually took it on the first day of bow season.
Yep. We've had a lot of people that have been curious about the whole process of how you prepare the meat to be able to use it. That all of that is very easily available on. Well, why, Kitty? He saw something over there. Very easily available.
He's chasing a stink bug.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They don't really stink, but there's a lot of them around. These little bugs that come around, and he likes to chase them. I get rid of them every time I can find one. But anyway, if somebody's interested in the process in between actually getting the deer and having the meat ready to use, there's a lot of YouTube videos out there where you can find out about that. But what we would like to share with you in this video is everything from kind of cubing the meat up, and then what we've done as far as canning, which was our first experience with canning, especially pressure canning, and it's gone well, and just freezing, and just how we've used some of the meat that we got from it. And we're very pleased with how this has worked out. It's a very good, clean meat, and we're not wasting anything. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we just wanted to show you guys kind of how we've done this.
Yeah, let me just say that we're actually doing this intro right now after we've done all the canning.
Oh yeah, I saw this whole time.
And for both of us, I think we've never done any canning at all before. Mm-hmm. We've never had a deer before. None of that. It's all new.
It's all new.
It was pretty intimidating for both of us.
Yes.
And Molly has done a lot of that sort of stuff.
As far as the canning and preparing.
Right. And she was going to help us, but she and Barry have been so busy trying to get that house finished that they're renovating that Molly wasn't able to be here with us, so we could talk to her a lot on the phone.
I talked to her a lot on the phone. She was a huge help.
But
we did it ourselves.
And we read the book that she gave us.
Yes.
And what we discovered was that it's not nearly as bad as we
were afraid
as we thought it would be.
Yeah.
It was kind of intimidating, but once we got through one batch, we realized, oh, this is no big deal.
Yeah, as far as canning, pressure canning the meat.
Right.
It's ended up, as long as you really pay attention and you do read the instructions, it was not that bad of a deal, and I'm very pleased with what I ended up with. And what's really nice with this is that these jars now, quart jars of the venison, are already like cooked and tender, and they're in a broth already, and so they're wonderfully easy to use and flavorful. So it's a neat way. We don't even have to worry about whether they have electricity for the freezer. They're just ready to go. And it's been a pretty cool learning curve, and we're so grateful that Barry and Molly both have had experience with the whole hunting process, preparing the meat afterwards, and then how to preserve it. But we're very thankful for them.
We did do all the processing ourselves with Barry's help.
Yes, every single thing.
We're not showing all of that, but we will show the canning.
Yep.
So.
And like I said, if you're interested in that other part of the processing, it's not hard to find on YouTube. So, okay, well, this will be kind of interesting to show you guys.
Yep. Okay, here we go. Here we go.
What I got for you today. Okay. Razor blades. Yeah, good catch. Razor blades in here. And isn't that cute? Oh. Okay. Shaving foam. Yeah, shaving lotion.
Okay. So I'm cutting them into these cubes like stew beef or something. Stew venison. Well, this is a lot of work. I'm going to be at this for a long time, so I'm not going to video all of it. You get the idea.
So we've known that Barry and Molly have been able to can some of the venison meat. So I've been talking to her and she's been a lot of help. And she also has given me a book I can use, which I'll show you right here, that has been very, very helpful to me. It's from Ball, who makes these jars. So I did a batch yesterday because I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't want to film it until I kind of had an idea what I was doing. So now I'm going to show you some of the process I know how to do now, basically with pressure cooking, pressure canning some of the venison that has been cubed up. We'll explain more about that. But right now these have been dishwashed. And yesterday I used a hot pack method, but after consulting with some experts, I think I can do this with a cold pack method because it'll still thoroughly cook and be completely sealed and protected by being in the pressure cooker. And it's in that pressure canner for an hour and a half after it builds up pressure. So right now, because these are clean but they've been kind of sitting out, I'm rinsing them. And I'm going to do, I think, about 7 jars, well, because that's what fits in the pressure canner. So I'm just getting these a real good, nice hot rinse off. Now, I already washed the lids, the 2-part lids, very carefully. I'll show you what I did with those. I've kept them covered so that they're clean and really ready to go. So here are a few of the things that I've been using. When I was doing the hot pack yesterday, these were really helpful because I couldn't find the little magnet you use for the little lids, and we actually picked the hot lids up out of the hot water with these. And then of course you have to have some kind of a nice sort of soft spatula to run around inside of the jar. It gets rid of bubbles, and I need the funnel, of course, when I'm doing it. And I actually just had this because I've been putting about a teaspoonful of salt into each of the quart jars. And then here I have had a nice soft, nice clean cover over my lids, the 2-part lids, so that they're nice and clean and ready to be used for today. Bill did a beautiful job cutting this meat up into just nice sized chunks. It's important to take off as much of the like gristly tendon kind of things as you can, and then we end up with really lovely like stew beef size. Let me take a second and I'll show you one of them I did last night. Being very careful with it here. So I've just got a really lovely jar here, all preserved, of already pressure cooked meat that's going to be ready to use in some wonderful broth. And this, yeah, the seal is good and tight on it. So these first 4 experiments here came out really well. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I've already put meat up to about 1 inch from the top here in this one. And then I'm going to go ahead. Now this water is like hot, but not hot. It's just hot. Like you could put your finger in it. And I'm going to use that in here with some salt. And then when we put the water in the big pressure canner, I'm going to put about 3 inches in there of the same temperature of water so that it's warm, but it's not going to shock the glass. You don't want to like shock this glass. So this should not be enough of a temperature change to cause problems here. You don't want to weaken the glass or weaken the seal. Okay, now let that water trickle in there. It's going to form a wonderful broth. There we go. That looks good. About 1 inch from, not the top of the top, 1 inch from this right here. Now I'm going to go ahead and put in about a teaspoonful of salt. And I have cooked so much, I know about what a teaspoonful is. So I'm just going to put in, oh, that's good, right about there. A teaspoonful of salt. And then I take this, we don't want anything metal, we don't want anything that could etch or scratch the glass so it maintains integrity. But you need to kind of push it around in here to make sure that you don't have any air bubbles trapped in here, because that air bubbles can kind of trap, I guess, bacteria or something, I don't know, but you're supposed to make sure you clear all the bubbles out. And of course I'll clean this all off really carefully, but now these are still quite clean. I washed them really well yesterday. And so I'm gonna just put...
Clean the top.
Oh, thank you. So I have this nice cloth. Oh, can you hand me that one, sweetheart, right there? I have some really nice cheesecloth, cotton, bright white towels that I can keep really nice and clean. And thank you. I gotta be sure you just want to wipe the top off really well. I'll keep that nice and clean. And then when they were hot, we put them on with the tongs, but here. Now, apparently I want to make sure that I'm setting this only on the sticky stuff and no metal against the glass. And then I screw this on, and I do it just so it's nice and finger tight, not super tight. Just so it's snug, as tight as my weak old hands can do it. And then this is one of the jars then that we're going to be setting in the pressure canner. And once the pressure goes up, well, we'll explain that in just a minute. Okay, let me just do another one here. And like I said, right now I'm doing 7. So just put this beautiful meat in here. And while I'm doing this, I'll explain. We already had the lovely little, they're like steaks that are sort of inside meat. All right, now this is actually a very clean paper towel here, and these are squeaky clean. So I don't want to, I can just put this over here now, I guess. But they're very clean. But there's like little pieces of meat that are like kind of on the inside that are very nice and tender. We already ate those like steaks from the venison. We have what they call backstrap, which we have cut up into roasts that I'm going to slow cook. And then this is from all the really heavy leg haunch kind of meat that Bill very carefully cut up. And this I want to pressure cook and can so they're wonderfully available whenever I need them. Okay, so I'm like a good inch from the top there. I'll put in my water. I'm trying really hard to pay attention to keeping everything clean. Let that soak in a little bit. Yeah, I don't want that. The spatula really is good because I don't want to let air bubbles be trapped in there. That looks actually pretty good. The directions said that it's really important to try to get as much of the gristle and fat and stuff off because those will heat sort of at a different temperature, I guess, than the rest of the meat does, and you might not get as really good of a safe seal, I guess, is what they were saying. So, all right, a little bit of salt. You can get to where you can eye a teaspoonful pretty easily. And of course, I don't really have to stir this in. It's going to be boiling like crazy in the pressure cooker. All right, we got a 23 quart pressure cooker to do this. You can hold 7 of the jars. And then we got the jars are not easy to find. We got them from, what's it called?
Uline.
Uline, yeah.
Online, it's Uline.
Yeah, it's called Uline, and it was online that we were able to get the quart jars with the lids, which was a wonderful thing to find. So always, all right. These, like I said, I really scrubbed these yesterday, and then I've had them covered in a cloth all night. I touch the inside. I wiped the top. I got salt in there. I got the air bubbles out. Okay, there's another one. So I'm going to prepare all 7 of these, and then we'll show you how we put them in the pressure cooker and kind of what's involved with that. Now I want to say something here real quick before I move on. I am far from a teaching expert on this. We've tried to do all the research that we could, try to find the things that we can, talk to Molly who's done it before. Please don't treat me like I'm an expert. I want to encourage you that this certainly can be done. I'm excited about this good meat that I'm going to have, really good clean meat. But, check, read things, talk to people. There probably are online videos that are from experts. But I just want to show you kind of how I'm doing it. Now, when we got this beautiful big pressure cooker, it's like a pressure canner, it didn't have one of those little rack things that can go inside that will help lift the jars in and out if you need to. So we also went ahead and got like a water bath canner, which is going to be for other things, pickly things and stuff like that. And it came with a wonderful like wire mesh basket that you can lift in and out that fit it perfectly, and also fit our pressure canner perfectly. So in a second here, after I put some water in there, you can see Bill putting the jars in really easily with that. So it's pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and put in some of the like hottish water like I put in the actual jars, about 3 inches in our big pressure canner. I thought I would be doing 7 jars, but it looks like I'm finishing up my cut up meat with 6 jars. So they're sitting in here, and I have about 3 inches of water in there all ready to go. And we're going to start the whole pressure cooking process now. It has to steam for 10 minutes, like whoosh, out the top of it for like 10 minutes. And then after it's done that, then we go ahead and put the little, we'll show you. Now we have our stovetop on, of course, one of the bigger burners. In fact, it's so big it kind of covers 2 of them a little bit. Okay, all right, hun.
So we put the heat on. We have to take these off. This is what regulates the temperature, the pressure at 10 psi. We take those off and let the water boil and let the steam come out here, and once that happens, then you let it steam for 10 minutes before you put these back on it again.
Okay. Tell them about our adventure with the instructions on this.
Yeah, we bought this. Of course, we've never done this before. We're trying to figure out what in the world we're doing. I'm trying to figure out how to regulate the pressure, and in the book that she showed you, we're reading, it says it needs to be 10 psi, but this says 70 kPa. What in the world is a kPa? And we fretted for that for a while. We looked at the gauge here. This goes up to 250 kPa.
And it hardly even shows 10.
And yeah, and the 10 is so low you can't even see it. So finally, like all 21st century wizards that I'm not, I Googled it. And I just put in kPa, and it came up with or I put in kPa units, and it came up with a conversion table. So I put in 10 psi, and it told me that it had to be, that it was equal to 69 point something kPa. So I look on here, 70 kPa. So this is set at 10 pounds, which is exactly what we need, but we had no idea. Now my mother used to have a pressure cooker when I was a kid, and she had ones that had all different sizes, and it was 10 pounds, 20 pounds, and whatever, and you just use the one that you need to maintain the right pressure. This one only came with one set of these at 70 kPa or 10 psi. kPa, by the way, is kilopascal units, whatever that is. Anyway, there you go.
Well, and you know, this is a pressure canner, so I'm beginning to think that maybe the reason that it is just set at 70 is because that's the good
That's
pressure.
the standard pressure for canning, I guess.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to let it start heating up, and it'll take 10 minutes plus at least an hour and a half.
Okay, so now it's boiling, and it's been steaming out of these vents for about 10 minutes. So now I put these on here. These are the weights that will maintain the pressure inside at 10 psi. And now we'll wait for it to pressurize.
And then once it's pressurized, it's an hour and a half.
Okay, so you can see that it is now up to 70 kPa, which is 10 psi, and these are starting to let the steam escape.
Totally.
So now I'm going to turn the stove down a little bit and set the timer for 90 minutes. Okay, so now we had this thing down here. We had this on the stove for 90 minutes. And then I turned it off the heat and set it aside until the gauge dropped down to 0. So now the pressure is out and I can open it up.
You always want to make sure there's no pressure left. There we go. And of course, be aware these are beyond hot. And we just lift those up to the side. All right, I'm going to use this thing. Of course, these are very, very hot. This doodad was easy to find with the canning stuff at Walmart. And boy, is it useful for lifting these extremely hot jars out. And of course, once you set them out, like on a cutting board or a heavy towel or something, you don't touch them again, period, until they are completely cooled, about 2 inches apart, so they can cool evenly. If there's a cold draft or they get joggled too hard or hit too hard, they can break. They're very, very hot. There we go. All right, these 6 look good. And of course, once everything's cooled and I've got the rings off, we'll wipe them down nicely, and I'll write with a Sharpie on top of the little seal the date and the fact that it's venison. And then you don't reuse the little seal on top, just the ring and the jar. Oh, and look, 10 jars. Cool. Alrighty, that's great. Okay, these that I've already got done have the seal is good. It doesn't move, it's very firm. You don't store it with the ring on. Oh yeah, that's nice and snug. That's when you're supposed to check it, So, okay, these all look like they're good. All right, I'm just kind of wiping the jars down. I've checked the seals. They're nice and tight. You can't lift them up. I'm going to put a V for venison with a Sharpie and then the date. And then we're going to figure out a good, kind of cool, dry, dark place to keep these. All right, so from the venison, we had already had some really nice little steaks. It looks like I'm going to can 10 quart jars of the cubed meat, and we have 3 of these. Are called backstrap, and it's just like a little roast, and we'll be putting that into a slow cooker. I usually cook it 24 hours and it just comes out tender and really good. And this package doesn't look very big, but it can easily make 2 meals for us. Then we have had the bones left, just like you do with the turkey or anything like that. And so I stewed them for a very long time to make some bone broth. I put in a little bit of garlic and some onion and some salt. And I'm going to be saving this lovely, lovely broth here to use for making all sorts of stuff, from casserole or a soup, a stew, to a gravy kind of a thing. And I'm gonna freeze some of them, and if I don't have enough room in the freezer, I might can some of this. And then right here is all that's left of the cooked bones and
from the rear legs,
from back legs. And I'm just going to take some time tonight and just pull off these beautiful, well-cooked pieces of meat now that you can get off easily. And I'm probably going to use these to make supper tonight because I don't want to waste any single bit of it. All right, so what I do here, it's not difficult. I've got quart-size bags, and they're going to be very easy to label. I won't label this one ahead of time, the rest of them I will. And what I usually do, I'll set this aside. You can go right in here. And I washed my funnel really well. Got my funnel here. Okay, I'm holding this like this. And I can do this by myself. And I'm just going to prop my arm right here. Stop a second, hon. These freezer bags are Ziploc, and they have a flat bottom on them. And so I zipped it right up to the edge of this funnel, and it helps it be much more secure. I'm just going to start ladling it. Now, of course, once this the bones and the scraps of meat that we just couldn't quite cut off easily. Once they were all done cooking, of course we strained this. This has all been strained out into just a beautiful broth. And I tell you, the nutrition you can get, honestly, from the bones, from the marrow, from so many different things in here, is very, very healthy. And I'm going to just give a nice serving here that could make a soup or something like that. Okay, let me get another scoop. There we go. All right, lift this out, put it on a clean towel. I'm going to try to get all the air out that I possibly can. And I will label this, but I have a lovely little bag here that I can freeze. And I can so easily just pop that into a pan and start melting it, or there's all sorts of different ways that you can do it. If I want to add this to something that's already liquid, then I can just put it in there and it'll thaw. So I'm going to be making myself a bunch of these bags of the broth. I might try canning some too. Okay. Now I'm going to pressure can the broth that I made. It's a bone broth. I used all the bones that we had and any scraps and cooked them for a long time. And you can find recipes in different places to how to make bone broth. But anyway, now I'm gonna can it. We didn't really have room in the freezer for me to try to put this all into bags and put it in the freezer. We just got the freezer above the fridge. But I thought, well, since I'm canning, I looked it up and I can can the bone broth. And the meat took an hour and a half under pressure. This will take 25 minutes. So I'm just gonna pour it in. And it's beautiful. We strained it and it's just a beautiful broth here. I really think I can just pour it up to an inch from the top. Not only will that be handy for making all sorts of soups, stews, gravy, whatever, but it will be very nutritious. There's so much nutrition in it.
Okay.
Alrighty. Now I'll wipe this off very carefully. I've got nice clean lids and seals. And I just screw the lid on. There we go. I haven't always been very good at getting these to catch and screw on. Anyway, just finger tighten it down, and I will pressure cook these then at like 25 minutes after the 10 minutes of steaming, and I should have some lovely canned broth. Okay, I'll show you in a little bit. All right, I'm gonna set them very carefully into about 2.5, 3 inches of water here in the pressure canner. And I'm gonna have 5 quarts. And then I already have 1 quart that I've used part of it and the other part's in the freezer ready to use. So it looks like I've been able to get 6 quarts of bone broth. Very nutritious and very flavorful. All right, now we'll put the lid on and get that steaming for 10 minutes and then put on the little weights like we did before and let it cook for 25. So we want to show you what we've been able to get from the deer. Now, I grew up in Colorado, and I grew up used to big mule deer. And goodness, some friends of mine got an elk one time, and they had 200 pounds of boneless meat off of it. But these out here are very small. They're whitetails, and they're very small. So don't feel like, well, how can that be very much? I'm very pleased with what we were able to get from that deer. So we already ate the heart. And there was these wonderful inside muscle steaks that we ate. It took 2 meals. They were delicious. But then, that was fresh meat that we used right away. And then we took what's called a back strap. And there's like enough to slow cook. This probably is 2 meals, honestly, in each one. But I've got 3 back strap roasts. And then I made bone broth. With the bones, I tried to use everything I possibly could. Any bones we had, I made bone broth. And this is a beautiful, very healthy bone broth here. And I've got 5 quarts. And then I have one that's actually a quart that's frozen here. I used part of it and then I just froze the rest. I was just using it for something else. Anyway, so there's like 6 quarts there. And now here is my cubed meat. And we have 10 quarts here. And there's just lovely, already cooked, soft venison in there that's preserved, and it's already in a broth. And so there's 10 quarts here. And it's not at all unexpected that I'll get at least a meal and maybe a lunch out of each one of these when I use it. So it's a good amount of meals here from this deer, and some wonderful soups and gravies and stews. So yeah, that was basically what we got from it.
So I've never had heart. Elizabeth loves heart. She eats it all the time. I've never had heart.
When I can find it.
So I'm trying, the first heart that I'm trying is deer heart. It's much chewier than I expected. Not tough, just kind of a little bit rubbery, chewy kind of texture.
It's a very hard-working muscle.
But it actually tastes kind of similar to liver, just a different texture. Very good. I think I can do this.
Good. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was caramelized onions and mushrooms and the heart. And greens from the sweet potatoes from the garden, and potatoes. So, good. Enjoy
Sweet
it.
potato greens.
Yep. Aren't they amazingly good?
Yep.
Alrighty, hun. So I'm really pretty pleased that we're going to have this much that we can use.
Yep.
And we really are trying to learn how to make very good use of that good meat. So, okay.
And you know, like I talked about before, that this is really a prepper type thing to be able to acquire and store and preserve our own meat, as well as our own vegetables from the garden and that sort of thing.
It's a good skill to have. If you're going to eat meat at all, it's a good skill to have.
Right.
Yeah.
So for those of you who enjoy this sort of thing, I hope you've enjoyed watching us stumble through it.
Yeah. And I'm sure that people who are good at canning will be like, oh, if you had, or I should have, or
all the mistakes we made.
Yep. But so far, everything seems to be well sealed, and I think it came out fine. And like I said earlier in the video, don't treat me as a canning expert. We're just trying to share that we're learning and we're working on this, and there's good resources out there. I am grateful that we found the jars at Uline, Uline. We're not affiliated with them in any way at all. I'm just letting you know that was one of the places where we finally found the quart jars.
Right. I didn't think we were going to find any, but we finally found some there.
Yeah. And I've had a few things I wish I could have done some canning out of the garden that I just wasn't able to because I just didn't have any jars yet. Yeah. So now I do. Now I've got jars.
Maybe we should have looked for cans instead.
Yeah, you call it canning, but you put it into glass jars. Yeah. They should call it jarring. Yeah. That sounds weird. Okay.
Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, live simple.
Live free. You be blessed.
All right, love you guys, and we'll be back again really soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.